Welcome back to Reclaiming Me, a trauma-informed podcast helping women with complex PTSD heal the lasting impact of childhood attachment wounds so you can finally release people-pleasing and perfectionism and learn to trust in relationships, starting with the one you have with yourself. I'm your host, Cindy Payne, licensed professional counselor, trauma specialist, and someone who's walked this path both personally and professionally. Today, we're talking about attachment, relationships, and the patterns that we repeat in love. My guest is Bryan Power, creator of myrelationshipfail.com and a certified coach through the Personal Development School and Integrated Attachment Theory. Bryan shares both his personal journey and practical tools for navigating attachment wounds, understanding emotional needs, and setting boundaries. And I have to say, what really stood out to me in this episode was Bryan's reminder that our attachment patterns are not flaws. They're just information. And this hits me personally because it reframes the way we judge ourselves for old patterns or choices. I also loved his focus on noticing when our patterns are triggered and having small, actionable tools to respond versus react. I found myself reflecting on my own attachment triggers while listening, and I think anyone can take that insight into their own relationships. Here are 3 key things to listen for in this episode. Number 1, how understanding your attachment style can clarify why certain patterns keep repeating and how to work with them. Number 2, the 6 pillars of integrated attachment theory and how they guide you towards healthier, more secure connections. And number 3, practical tools for boundaries, communication, and self-regulation that help turn anxious, avoidant, or disorganized patterns into a more secure attachment in everyday life. Let's get into this episode with Bryan. Welcome back to Reclaiming Me, the podcast where we explore trauma healing, attachment, people-pleasing, and the nervous system patterns that shape our lives and our relationships. Today, I'm joined by someone whose work has been incredibly impactful in the attachment and the relationship space. His name is Bryan Power, creator of myrelationshipfail.com and a certified coach through the Personal Development School and Integrated Attachment Theory. Bryan's platform has reached thousands of people who are struggling with the patterns that they keep repeating in relationships. And I think today you'll find that his story is deeply relatable, especially for anyone who has ever asked themselves, why do I keep choosing the wrong people? Or why can't I show up in the way that I want to in love? And so today we're going to be digging into Bryan's personal journey, the core concepts of the integrated attachment theory and how attachment wounds and complex PTSD often overlap in ways that can feel confusing, painful, or even shame-filled. And so let's get into it. Bryan, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Cindy, thanks so much. Yeah, thanks for having me on the show today. Quite an introduction. Yeah. I sound pretty exciting, but I'm not sure that I am. I hope I can live up to that.
Oh, no pressure, right?
Thanks for having the show today. I'm really excited to be here, though. Thank you.
Oh, well, it is my honor to have you on. And so you're the creator of myrelationshipfail.com. And this is a platform designed to help people understand why their relationships keep breaking down and how attachment patterns shape the way that you love and you communicate and you connect. And through your own relationship challenges and integrated attachment theory, what I'm learning about you is already just by doing some digging is that you really bring a compassionate, grounded approach to helping people identify these core wounds and really understand their emotional needs, right? And that's with boundary work and breaking cycles that keep you stuck, right?
Yeah, it's all the stuff I never learned, early on in
Yeah.
my life. But unfortunately,
Yeah.
it's taken me a long time to figure this out. But through a lot of life experiences and through my own journey here, with the crazy year in 2024 between my wife and I really fell into this world of attachment theory and integrated attachment theory program, and it's really changed my life. It's really changed my relationship. And I'm fascinated by the work, and it's just so exciting. And I really am on a mission just to help as many people as I can, to help them have better relationships. And hopefully we can save some people from having some heartbreaks and maybe divorces and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just becoming my mission. And, I'm truly honored to just like be able to share this information now. It's been a blessing.
Awesome. Awesome. And, before we get into this integrated attachment theory framework, I'd love to start with you. And I'm wondering if you can just orient our listeners and share a little bit about what was maybe a moment that really woke you up to your own attachment patterns and your own relationship cycle.
I mean, I knew I had issues, throughout my adult life. I've really struggled in relationships, and just could
Yeah.
never really put it together and really never kind of had it all, figured out. But yeah, everything really came to a head in 2024, early in the year when my wife and I were just having one more argument. Really, it really was over our parenting styles. It doesn't matter, but that was the trigger, if you will, right? And so,
Yeah.
one more little fight led to her, challenging me to see a therapist because in her mind she thought I had a lot of issues. But of course, I challenged her to see a therapist as well because in my mind she was the one with all the issues. So we decided to do that, and we both took each other up on that and said, all right, let's see if we can get something done and see if we can learn about this and see what's going on here. And so that was a good step, a step in the right direction to take some ownership and realize that, hey, we both had some issues. Let's figure this out a little bit. And
Yeah.
as she delved into her childhood trauma, she was seeing a childhood trauma specialist. I was seeing my therapist. Over the next 4 months, our emotional clash would just begin to kind of like spiral out of control. And it just became so emotionally, tumultuous, I guess you could say, that after about
Yeah.
4 months of just complete emotional chaos, she would actually reach for a restraining order against me for emotional safety. I never threatened my wife with physical harm, but the
Yeah.
emotional turmoil was just so severe that she would do that. And at that point, I just thought, man, this is over. I can't fix this relationship. I didn't know what was going on. I was exhausted. I
Hmm.
just tried to pick up the pieces and move on with my life and kind of go from there. But I was fortunate enough to come across attachment theory and integrated attachment theory work. Stuff that was created. Well, integrated attachment theory has been around since really created in the 50s, became popular in the
Hmm.
70s, right? And that's been around for a little while. But so I came across a really great video by Thais Gibson, Thais, last name Gibson, Gibson. She was on the
Yeah.
Mel Robbins podcast and she was talking about attachment theory. And this was about a month or so before I actually got kicked out of the house. And I was like, wow, I was fascinated by what she was saying because I could see my wife in this category. I could see myself in this category. I could hear a
Yeah.
lot of the wounds that she was talking about, a lot of the behaviors. And I was just like, oh, there's something to this. And so I was
Hmm.
fascinated by that work and just decided to delve into it. Unfortunately, it was a little too late type of thing for my wife and I to kind of fix it before we kind of
Yeah.
hit the the high point, if you will. But even after the restraining order and we were separated, I was just so captivated by the work. I was just going to continue that process and continue to learn it, and not thinking I would ever get a chance to fix it with my wife. I just figured it was moving on, but I wanted to be able to fix myself, be able to have these tools so I could have a good relationship with somebody in the future. And so that work just began to engulf me, and I was very fortunate to kind of keep my head down and do all that work, and it actually paid off in a way that my wife and I were able to come back together and actually fix our own relationship. So it was pretty fascinating the way that turned out.
Yeah, wow, what a great intro story to that, right? Because I think what I'm learning for myself is that, in order to stay curious in a relationship with another partner, we have to be able to first regulate our nervous system, right? Because I can't be curious and in fear or reactive at the same time, right? And so I'm wondering, was there a turning point, a specific turning point for you where you realized like my nervous system is not protecting me, it's actually sabotaging me?
Oh yeah, I mean, man, things started to spiral for us, and at first I thought she was, because she's really started the emotional turmoil, I think, more than me first, and I
Yeah.
started to think she was having like an emotional midlife crisis breakdown, something kind of weird, and I was like, I don't understand it. But as I
Hmm.
continued down the road, then my emotional triggers began to go. So all of a sudden, my fear of abandonment, my fear of being alone,
Yeah.
my fear of being unsafe, I didn't know where I was going to live, how this was going to turn out. All those subconscious wounds started to get triggered on my side. And all of a sudden, we were
Yes.
both an emotional mess, right? And so, and I love what Thais Gibson says, and it really made sense to me. Is she said that 95 to 97% of our decisions in life are made by the subconscious, and that the
Mm.
subconscious cannot overpower, or outwill the subconscious.
Oh,
So even
wow.
though consciously I know one thing, subconsciously the subconscious is running the show, if you will,
Hmm.
predominantly running the show. And so until I fix those subconscious wounds and all that inner behavior that's going on that I wasn't even fully conscious of, I'm going to continue to have problems. And so it became evidently aware, super aware, through this
Hmm.
entire experience, because even though consciously I knew I'm okay, I'm a grown man, I'm fine, I'm safe,
Yeah.
I'm confident, I'm all these other things. When things really started to go south, all of a sudden that was gone. That was out the window. It was the fear. It was the abandonment. It was all those little childhood wounds coming back out, and I felt like a little child again, like completely lost, and just didn't know what to do and how to stop the train, if you will. And so
Yes.
it became pretty obvious that there was a lot of trauma there that was playing out.
Sure, sure. Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing that. And your story really illustrates why this integrated attachment theory is able to resonate with so many people. But for listeners who are brand new to it, how would you explain the integrated attachment theory in the simplest, most human way?
Well, integrated attachment theory is really based off attachment theory. So the attachment theory is the fact that there's 4 different attachment styles, and that's how we basically attach to each other in relationships.
Hmm.
All right. And so those 4 attachment styles are: number one, you have a secure attachment style, you have an anxious, preoccupied attachment style, you have a dismissive, avoidant attachment style, and then you have what we call a fearful avoidant, or some people call it a disorganized attachment style.
Yeah.
And those attachment styles are based upon the wounds that they basically carry and the way they behave in relationships. And so once you kind of learn those things, it's a game changer on that alone, just to know like those things. And then what Thais Gibson kind of realizes, okay, it's one thing to know our attachment style, but how do we
Hmm.
then fix it? Right. And
Yeah.
how do we move from the unhealthy attachment styles to the healthy, secure attachment style? And so that's the work that she put together. And it's really based on 6 pillars, if you will.
Okay.
And those 6 pillars are: number one, you have your core wounds. That's the subconscious thoughts that we're having, the beliefs about ourselves. Again, that fear of abandonment, that fear of being alone, fear of being trapped, or some of these types of things that are playing out subconsciously. That's the first one.
Hmm.
The second one is our needs. Okay. What are our true needs? How do I then, number one, find out what my true needs are? What do I really need to be happy in my life? And then how do I fill my needs on my own, where I'm really not outsourcing my needs to everybody else? Because if I can fulfill my own needs, I'm safe, I'm comfortable on my own. I don't need extra, if you will. So that's number two. Number three is our emotions, right? How do we really gain control of our emotions? And what can we learn from our emotions? Okay. And
Hmm.
we always talk about beliefs lead to our thoughts lead to our emotions, and then emotions lead to our actions. So if I backtrack that a little bit and say, okay, well, my emotions are going to lead to my actions, but wait a second, what are my emotions now telling me? If I'm angry, what are my thoughts behind the anger? And then what are my core beliefs about that that's causing me to now feel some anger, or feel some fear, or feel some, sadness, or even happiness or joy, right? What are the thoughts that are causing me to have these emotions? Okay. So emotions aren't a bad thing. We just have to learn from them. Number 4 is our boundaries. What are healthy, good boundaries? How do we set them? And then how do we kind of convey those to our partners and make sure that people are kind of respecting our boundaries? So that's a huge one, right? I always say the boundaries are like the fence around the house, and we're the house, right? So it's going to protect us. So by having some boundaries, that's how we protect ourselves a little bit. So how do we do that? Number 5 is communication. That's a big one. I feel like most people always talk about, well, we can't, we don't know how to communicate. There's communication breakdown. And it really just comes back to that we just don't know how to communicate in a way that actually connects and actually moves the needle. And I
Yes.
always talk about how my wife and I, we would, whenever in the past my wife would try to have a conversation with me, I was always listening to defend myself, right? I was never listening to really understand her. I was always listening to tell her why she was wrong, and how, that's not true, and all this other stuff. Because those are my own core wounds. Those are the things that wouldn't allow me to kind of hear her out, if you will.
Yeah.
So we just had a bad way of communicating, not in a way that really moved the needle, right? Not to understand and kind of find a solution. So we changed the way that we do that, and that's a big difference. And number 6 is your behaviors, right? Is how do we behave and act in a manner that is really healthy and much better way to do things, right? How do I kind of stop the unhealthy behaviors and turn those into healthier, good behaviors on a regular basis, so that I can be looked at as a man with that's commands a little respect. You can look at somebody and say, okay, this guy knows how to handle himself, and he's not flying off the handle, or he's not behaving in a way that's kind of childish or immature, and just in a way that, again, somebody could kind of really appreciate, right? So those 6 elements to me were game changers. And as I learned each one, and I still learning, I'm still getting better all the time with this, is as I learn more and more of these tools, it really does move the needle in the relationship. And then, yeah, it's just a game changer when we do it. So it's been fascinating work for me, and I love sharing this, and I love being able to help others kind of, find this approach as well. So
Yeah, gosh, talk about a lot of learning in such a short window of time, but it's such important work, right? And
yeah.
I'm thinking even as you started with emotional needs, it's such a huge part of this model, and I'm wondering how do you help people identify emotional needs that they maybe were never even taught to articulate?
Yeah, I mean that's a tough one at times. There's an emotional processing tool that we use in the program. I'm a teacher of Thais Gibson's work now through the Integrated
Okay.
Attachment Theory program, if you will. And so there's just a tools that we can use to kind of help you uncover those things. And then again, it has a lot to do with again, feeling that emotion and then backtracking a little bit, asking yourself, is that 100% true? Do I really know? Let's just say I'm afraid somebody's going to abandon me, and then I can
Hmm.
ask myself, hey, is that 100% true? Do I really know that this person is going to abandon me? No, I don't. So
Yeah.
then we kind of take that approach, and then little by little we dissect it, and then as we just
Okay.
backtrack a little bit, it always comes back to that core belief. I may have a core belief of saying, again, I feel like, oh, this person is going to abandon me. That's my core belief. And then my
Yes.
thought is, oh, yeah, we're having a little argument, so therefore, because we're having this argument, I'm not going to be safe. I'm gonna, they're going to leave me. And now my
Yes.
thoughts are leading to my emotions, and now I'm getting emotionally charged. So I just have to backtrack and dissect it a little bit, and then figure out. It really comes back to those core wounds, in my opinion. That's the big part of it. And the
Yes.
more,
Yes.
the more we can uncover those core wounds, and that's the, what, and then kind of heal those a little bit and work on those.
Hmm.
That's when we really start to move the needle. Everything else, I think, stems off of that a little bit, but until we get the wounds really healed up, it's tough to move the needle in all these other things. They can help, certainly, and I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of good little communication skills and everything else, of course, but at the core
Hmm.
wounds are, I think, at the heart of the program of really trying to figure this out, and that's a challenge.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
And you talked also about boundary setting. And, you know, with attachment styles, boundaries are going to be communicated differently and they're also going to be received differently. And so, how do you think attachment styles really influence the way that you set or either avoid boundaries in some cases?
Yeah, I mean, so anybody who doesn't know, like, basically, like an anxious, preoccupied, is typically. So real quick, 4 attachment styles: secure attachment style. That's the ones that know how to communicate, set boundaries well, just emotionally
Yeah.
balanced, kind of have it all together. Those are the ones we all want to aspire to. Then you have an anxious, preoccupied. They are boundaryless. They really just kind of don't care
Yeah.
about anything other than saving the relationship. The connection is the most important thing
Hmm.
to them. Lots of communication, lots of fear of abandonment, lots of fear of being alone. So they really crave connection. On the flip side of that, you have like a dismissive avoidant. They crave a lot of independence. They're very
Hmm.
afraid of being trapped. They really kind of hyper independent. A lot of fear of a lot of wound of being like not good enough. Certainly a broken. They always feel like they're broken. They can't figure this out. They're just kind of damaged, if you will. Subconscious.
Hmm.
That's a subconscious wound. All 3 of the unhealthy attachment styles have an unsafe wound, so there's always a feeling of being unsafe.
Yeah.
So that's, and the dismissive avoidance. They typically, again, they like a lot of isolation. If they're dealing with emotional stuff, they're going to isolate. They're going to ask for space. Whereas the anxious
Yeah.
person is typically going to want to connect. And so a lot of times, if you see these two in a relationship together, which they often end up together, that causes a lot of friction and a lot of problems. Okay, so it's very
Yeah.
important to understand my partner. If I know my partner craves some space and I crave connection, then I have to be able to work with them and say, okay, maybe I need to give them a little space. And then if they know my attachment style, they say, okay, I need to maybe come their way a little bit so I don't give too much space. We have to kind of find some balance there. And
Sure.
then last but not least is that fearful avoidant, or that disorganized, if you will, attachment style. And they really
Mhm.
swing between both styles. They,
Yeah.
they definitely are close sometimes. They're very connected. And then maybe the next week they're causing a problem. They're fighting for some reason. Again, nothing particular. Just seems like out of the blue. They're used to chaos sometimes.
Mhm.
Betrayal is a big wound for them. They always feel like they're going to be betrayed, and so there's always that fear underlying of betrayal. And again, they
Yeah.
have a lot of the same core wounds: fear of attached, fear of being abandoned, fear of all
Yes.
these, other stuff. So when you do all these things like that's where we have to learn those styles and understand each other a little bit better. And then as far as the boundaries go, that's where, how do we set those, right? So if I'm an anxious person, I have no boundaries, and you try to set a boundary against me, I don't understand that. It doesn't make sense to me. Now,
Hmm.
if you're dismissive, sometimes set very extreme boundaries, but they don't even make sense sometimes. They're almost too much. They
Hmm.
have no boundary, but then they have a big boundary.
Yes.
Um, and then sometimes fearful avoidance, they will have no boundaries, but then maybe they'll get angry, they'll have a situation, then they'll create a boundary, and then the
Yeah.
next week they'll forget about the boundary. So
Yeah.
they kind of they'll set a boundary for a little while, but then they move on from the boundary. They're just all over the place with their boundaries. So it becomes very chaotic. And how do we understand those? How do we do it in a proper way? And it's okay to change the boundary. Sometimes I may have a boundary that for 3 months, 6 months, this is important to me right now. And then maybe
Hmm.
after 3 months, that I don't need it anymore. Maybe it's something that's changed in my life. So I can open up that boundary a little bit. But the thing is to be conscious of what we do really need at the time. And then how
Yeah.
do I convey it to the people that are around me so that, hey, this is important to me. This is what I need from you guys to kind of respect, my life, what I'm doing here. This is what
Hmm.
I kind of, this is the way I want to be treated, if you will. And
Yeah.
so when we convey that a little bit, we see who shows up, who responds properly, who respects that, who says, okay, I can work with that. And then, go from there. And a lot of times people, sometimes when we're first starting to set boundaries, a lot of times our friends and family, they don't understand it. Certainly if we never had boundaries before,
Hmm.
who is this person? And so they may
Yeah.
cross some boundaries in the beginning, but so this takes a little bit of practice, takes a little bit of time. And as we do it a little bit more and more, we get more and more used to it. We get better at it. And we do find out some people can or can't respond to our boundaries, and some people
Sure.
they can't respect our boundaries, and that's a problem.
Hmm.
And if that continues to happen, sometimes we have to decide, what do we do with that relationship? If it's
Yeah.
if it's a new friend, somebody I don't know too much, okay, maybe I don't have as long a fuse for them.
Sure.
But if it's somebody I've been, maybe it's a family member or somebody I've known for a long time, I'm going to probably give them a little bit more leeway, a little bit more space, a little bit more time to
Hmm.
kind of work with me. But it definitely takes a little time to kind of figure that out. Where do I lie? How much time do I give them? And where do I see the needle moving? If they don't move the needle at all, if they're not respecting at all or not even trying, that's an issue. There's something I may have to consider. Is that a relationship that I can live with?
Yeah, no,
But
that's a
it's not
great
easy.
point. No, not easy at
Yeah.
all. Those are
Yeah.
all really great points. And, integrated attachment theory, from what I'm learning, really seems to reframe behaviors like pursuing, withdrawing, people pleasing as adaptations. And I'm wondering if you can share, why is that reframing so healing when we look at it as an adaptation?
Yeah, I guess for me as a guy, I can compartment. What do you call that word?
Compartmentalize it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That's what I was trying to
yeah.
say. I can see it. I can see it as if six different things that I need to work on, and I can put that in a little compartment here and say, okay, I need to work better on my, some maybe my communication, right? And so I can say, oh
Hmm.
wow, I learned a new communication tool. I had a great conversation with my wife, and it really moved the needle a little bit. Wow, that's pretty cool. But then I might find, uh-oh, yeah, I kind of did set a boundary there. Maybe I need to work on a boundary now. And so I just
Yeah.
like to look at it as six different things that I can say, okay, if I can improve on this, if I can work on that a little bit, I can have six structured things that I can now focus on and almost grade myself a little bit. Am I getting better
Yeah.
at this? Am I changing a little bit? Did I do that a little bit better? As compared to just seeing a therapist sometimes where I can talk about my problems, I can get some maybe coping mechanisms and
Hmm.
tools, but is it really moving the needle, giving me the tools on a daily basis on how to really kind of work with this? Because
Yeah.
relationships are tricky. There's a lot of
Yes.
moving parts to them. There's always things are always changing. And if you don't really have the tools, it's really just hard to kind of keep this thing going. I always say if you're like a mechanic and your car's breaking down, and you have the tools and you know how to fix the car, you're not too worried about it. But if your car's breaking down and you're not a mechanic and you don't have
Hmm.
the tools and you're like, oh, my car's breaking down, I start to panic. What am I going to do? How am I going to buy a new car? What's going to happen
Yeah.
here? Right? But so it's all about having the right tools and the know-how on how to do it. And once you feel that, and once you have those tools, you're a lot more relaxed in the relationship. You're a lot more confident on how to do this. And it really does just work better. And it's not that stressful type of thing where you're always kind of watching your back, wondering how this thing is going to break down on you, so it's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't grow up with these tools. I grew up from a very
Oh,
dysfunctional family,
yeah,
and yeah, and so nobody taught me these things growing up, and so I just trying to figure it out in my adult life, and just messing them up. Relationship after relationship, just messing it up.
sure.
Some were longer than others. Some took maybe a few years to mess it up or what have you, but never feeling fulfilled, never fully kind of having that relationship in a way that was like amazing, the way that we have today. My wife and I have an amazing relationship today because of
Yeah.
what we've learned and what we've gone through and the tools that we now have.
It's amazing. Yeah, I was just sitting here thinking as you were talking, like, yeah, most of us didn't grow up with this language at all, right? This is really kind of newer to the scene. And I love your analogy about, like, the car breaking down, because I think for a lot of us, we just keep taking it through the car wash
Yeah,
and expecting
yeah,
something to change,
yeah, right.
right?
Yeah, just gonna wash the
Yeah,
outside and
that's
think
right.
that's
That's right. Make it look
yeah, as
pretty
long
and
as it
shiny
sparkles on the
again.
outside, yeah, sparkly and shiny, it's gonna be fine. But that's not true, right? We know that doesn't work.
Totally.
Yeah,
Yeah. And this my podcast and my work specifically is geared towards complex PTSD. And for complex PTSD, people often feel like they're too much or they're not enough. And I'm wondering if you can speak to how integrated attachment theory helps challenge that internalized belief of not enough, too much, or
yeah, no, these are all coping mechanisms that we learn and things that we learned growing up, really through our childhood, right? And
Mhm.
so, our first 7 years of a child's life are extremely formative. And if
Yeah.
you grew up in a very dysfunctional childhood, you're going to pick up a lot of these wounds, and they're just coping mechanisms teaching you how to survive. And
Yeah.
sometimes we take a position in our families and our lives, just to get through our childhoods and survive. That's what we do,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
they serve us well to grow up. They serve us well to get to survive.
Yeah.
They help us through these difficult situations. Unfortunately, we take those same wounds into our adult lives. And
Hmm.
now that feeling of not good enough, that feeling of having to earn love and all this other stuff, we just think
Yes.
that's normal. We just think that that's just the way it is. And
Hmm.
so we're seeing this all through this filter, this distorted filter that we've built, again, to help protect us. But now it no longer serves us in a way that's beneficial, and it's destroying our relationships. It's now causing problems. And so
Yeah.
now that little fear of not good enough and abandonment, maybe that's causing me to people please. Now that's causing me to kind of, be scared of being abandoned. And so now I'm attaching too much and I'm trying to keep the connection so much that it's actually pushing people away. It's not healthy. It's not in a way that's healthy and good. Right. And so, we just wind up in the long run, pushing people away and making it harder to have a really good relationship. So, but yeah, these are all things that we've learned growing up. And even if you came from a very healthy family,
Hmm.
you can still have wounds that are actually playing out. And so
Sure.
even though yeah, even if you came from a pretty good family, you can still develop these wounds throughout your life. And again, subconsciously, we don't know that we're actually doing this, then we're
Hmm.
causing these problems without even meaning to. We don't mean harm, but we're doing it because we don't know any better and we haven't figured it out. And so I think it's very important to start looking at ourselves and saying, okay, wait a second, how am I showing up? Am I showing up with a wound here that's causing a problem? Do I have a fear of abandonment? Do I have a feeling of not good enough? Am I trying to earn people's love and respect, to the point where it's unhealthy, right? Am I
Yeah.
a people pleaser? Am I forgetting about myself and, worrying too much about everybody else to the point where I'm not happy and I'm miserable on the inside? Sometimes we don't accept it
Yeah.
until, you know what I mean? But, and it just becomes like that problem. So we have to really kind of figure this out a little bit, and it can be a challenge, but it's worth the time to put into it and do the work, because on the flip side of that, when we heal all these things, we're free. We're now free
Hmm.
to live our lives. All that stress, that subconscious stress, is out of our bodies. This stress destroys our bodies.
Yeah.
So many people are unhealthy because of this subconscious stress that we're dealing with. I felt that come out of me when I was going through this stuff with my wife last year. I literally, my body was through so much stress, and through
Yeah.
that time, a lot of it got released as we began to do more healing. I felt a lot of that physical stress, the physical pain, and everything else is gone,
Hmm.
in so many ways. So many benefits come from this work when we actually do the healing. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's tough. It's tough, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
So just
It
got to look at it.
is.
Yeah,
It's hard work and it's good work and it takes a
yeah,
ton of courage. And I wonder in your own experience, and of course this might be different for different people, but what part of the integrated attachment theory model tends to move the needle fastest for trauma survivors? Would it be
yeah.
boundaries, needs, core wounds, emotional regulation? I mean, I know it's hard to kind of maybe
Yeah,
pinpoint just one, but if you
it is.
could say,
They all do. They all do, and that's so
yeah,
true. They all do, and I think it's different for everybody. But I think at the core of, I think the root of this is really the core wounds. I think
Yeah.
number one, the understanding of our core wounds, the understanding of some of these things. I think when you look at them and start to understand them, you're going to be like blown away. Your eyes are just like, oh my God, like this makes so much sense to me. At least that's
Yes.
the way I was when I saw it. I was blown away at like, wow, this makes sense as to why we're having a trouble communicating, why we're having trouble with boundaries and all. Why is our relationship struggle? Because we didn't have a lot of these boundaries. We didn't know how to communicate. Our
Yeah.
behaviors were all over the board. We had so many of these other issues that even though we loved each other, and that's the thing, we can love each other till we're blue in the face, but if we don't have the tools necessary, it doesn't matter. It's like taking the
Mm.
car through the car wash.
Yep.
You
Yep.
know, it doesn't work. And so we have to do it in a way that actually works. And that's what I love about this program. It gave me a bunch of things to look at. But I truly believe at the heart of it is those core wounds.
Yes.
If my subconscious is dealing with this trauma, this right, the CPTSD stuff, if
Hmm.
that's still
Hmm.
in there, that is driving the train, and that train is going towards a train wreck. This is a train wreck waiting to happen. I mean, that's why sometimes it just takes time. Like if we don't heal those wounds, a lot of times they fester. Just like in
Yes.
my life over the years, I thought they were getting better. I thought they were getting, but really subconsciously they weren't. They were still there. They're still underlying. And it just takes
Yeah.
that triggering moment, if you will, to bring it all out.
Hmm.
And when it does, it's a disaster. So yeah, I think at the heart of it is the core wounds, and there are some exercises we can do to begin to change that. My wife was able to see a childhood trauma specialist, did some really great work there. I think
Yeah.
whatever it takes to move the needle when it comes to trauma, childhood trauma stuff here, I think it's very important to just find what works for you. Absolutely, this was
Yeah.
something that worked for us, but yeah.
Sure, sure. You talk about core wounds, and I think for our listeners who are maybe new to a lot of this like verbiage, could you give an example of like what a core wound might be or a common core wound?
Yeah, so core wounds are really just so let's just say with like say fearful avoidance. Let's say so these are some of them. So you have like a feeling of I will be betrayed. I am unsafe.
Mm,
I am unworthy. Okay, I am
mm-hmm.
bad at the core. You just think you're a bad person. I will be abandoned. They also feel the abandonment wound. Feeling of
Yeah.
being trapped. They have a big fear of being trapped.
Yes.
Powerless or out of control. Not good enough. Okay, that's a big one for me, right? I never feel
Mm-hmm.
good enough. No matter what I
Mm-hmm.
do, I'm never good enough. I will be
Yeah.
disrespected. I am unloved. I am weak. Those are some big ones there.
Sure.
Um, for the dismissive avoidance, I am unsafe is a big one. I am defective. They always have this idea that they're broken. There's something defective about them. Also,
Yeah.
a fear of being trapped, helpless or incapable. Also, I am a feeling of being weak. I'm vulnerable. I'm
Yes.
not good enough. Also, not good enough. Powerless, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes why bother is a response. But anyway, anxious, preoccupied. Big one is the fear of abandonment. That's a big one. That was my biggest one. That's probably my biggest feeling of being unsafe. The unsafe wound is really for all three of the unhealthy attachment styles. They all have that feeling of unsafe.
Yeah.
I will be alone is a big one for anxious, preoccupied. I am not
Mm-hmm.
good enough. I will be
Yeah.
rejected, unloved, excluded, disliked, and I am bad. So those are a big list of those, core
Those
wounds,
core
if you will.
wounds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's just we have to start to figure out which ones we're suffering from, which ones are driving the train a little bit, and then kind of begin to heal those a little bit. And there's some exercises that you can do to kind of begin to heal that, among
Very
other things.
cool.
So, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it's so important to know. And, one thing that I really appreciate about your work is your willingness to talk openly about your relationship experiences. I mean, just look at your website name right off
yeah.
the bat, right? My relationship fail. I mean, that's so courageous. And I wonder, why do you think it is especially powerful for men specifically to understand attachment and emotional needs? Because for women, we're raised talking about a lot of our emotion, our feeling, our experiences. But for men, why is that so powerful to understand your attachment and your emotional needs?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to have a great relationship with your spouse, which I think most of us do, I think
Yeah.
we're struggling to figure it out, and I think that's the thing. Knowledge is, not knowledge is power, but of course, applied knowledge is really the power. So the
Yes.
first step is learning this and saying, okay, wow, I see some answers here, and that's what happened to me. I finally saw some answers, okay, and
Mm-hmm.
then once I began to get more of those answers, I began to apply those things. And so now as you begin to get, get some application in them, all of a
Yeah.
sudden you realize, wow, I've been doing things way wrong. And I think for a lot of guys, unfortunately, we're not being raised by men, and they're not teaching. I was raised by a single mom. A lot of us are coming from, single homes, broken homes. Even if you do have a mom and dad, sometimes dad isn't all put together either. Sometimes they have their own issues. They have their own wounds
Yeah.
growing up. And so if they haven't done the work, sometimes they're not able to kind of be there for their kids 100% in a way that, again, helps you grow up to be healthy, emotionally adapted and strong enough to kind of feel your feelings and go through them in a way that's healthy. Like, we're just not taught this stuff.
No.
So we can't be afraid of learning it. We can't be afraid to say, you know what, there's probably an issue here. Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do these things, right? I don't know how to communicate with my spouse. And I do feel attacked when she tries to talk to me, like all these little things, like it's okay to say, like, I don't really know. I have no clue how to really do this. And I
Mm.
think that's the first step for me is once I kind of just like, man, I'm just exhausted. I have no clue how to really do any of this because nobody showed me how. I didn't have a father there for me and he didn't have a father and so on. This is
Yeah.
generational in my family, right?
Sure.
So my father didn't have any clue and then he passed that on to me, and so
Yeah.
I can sit here and have the excuse, or I can say, you know what, I can do something about it and change. I don't want to pass this on to my son. I want my son to
Hmm.
grow up well adjusted. I want him to have the communication skills. I want him to be able to, know how his emotions, be in tune with them, and also be in control of them. I think a real man
Yes.
is okay. It's okay to feel emotions. That's
Hmm.
perfectly normal. But a real man learns how to gain control of them, learns how to kind of deal with them and not let them control him. And that is,
Yes.
I think, a big difference, right? Sometimes we're worried about that, but
Yeah.
yeah, just all those little things that I think we weren't taught, especially as guys. We just haven't been taught these things. And a lot of times people think, well, if they could, they would. Well, a lot of times we can't. A lot of times I think people can't, because
Yeah.
those wounds, because of our wounds and what we've been taught and our stuff that we're dealing with, we're not able to show up in a way that, is healthy for a
Hmm.
female and to have these good relationships, unfortunately. And that's unfortunate because I wish this work was taught early on in lives. I wish kids were
Yeah.
taught this in school, right? Imagine this was taught in junior high school, attachment theory and CPTSD and all these things and wounds. And how much would it move the needle for these kids? How many great relationships would we have? And how many heartbreaks can we, keep from if we had this understanding? Unfortunately, it's not as widespread knowledge as it should be. And that's
Yeah.
why I'm on the mission that I'm on. I'm on a mission to just share this message as much as possible because I want to keep as many people as possible from having these heartbreaks. I want to keep you from getting divorced. I want to see you have healthy, good relationships and feel fulfilled and do all this stuff. But until we get the message out and people are willing to take that message and learn and grow, then we're just
Hmm.
going to stay stuck. And so, but yeah, if
Yeah.
you're having trouble in your relationship, whether you're a guy or a female, whichever one, start to look into it, start to do the work, take the reins and say, I'm going to be the leader. As a man, I want to be the leader in my house and my family. I want to be the one that
Yes.
can do that. Right. And my wife is my partner. Absolutely. But I want to be a man enough to show up on my side. I love
Hmm.
what Thais Gibson says. We're both 100% responsible for our 50% of the relationship. And
Yeah.
so I have to ask myself, am I showing up 100%, for my 50% in the relationship? That's huge, right? And
Yeah.
until I can say yes to that 100%, then I've got a lot of work to do.
Sure.
So yeah, we can't be afraid to just take a look at ourselves and say, you know what, I don't know what I'm doing and it's okay. I can learn and grow
Hmm.
and change and I can get better at this. But if we're going to stay stubborn and say that there's not a problem, then we're going to continue to have these problems.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
And I even wonder too, for men specifically, and I don't know, you can speak to this, is, I think there's a lot of pressure to have the right answer and to have it all figured out. And you don't want to show that the weakness maybe that's perceived around not knowing some information. And so there's a real threat to that, to say like, yes, I want to lead, and yet I also don't have all of the information.
And that's usually that subconscious wound, right? It's that fear to be able to
Yeah.
say, it's that subconscious wound. If I admit that I'm not man enough or good enough, then you're going to see that I'm
Hmm.
not perfect. And now you're
Right.
going to leave me. You're going to abandon me. You're going to see that I'm not the man that I, think I am or hope that I was or want to be type of thing. And you're going to see my weakness. You're going to see my flaws. Uh-oh. And
Yeah.
that little subconscious fear is keeping me from being able to say and openly admit I need some work.
Yes.
I can improve here. And it's not to say the women need to work too. Women
Sure.
have their own wounds. They have their side too. It's not like they're perfect and we're not. It's not like the men are
Absolutely.
right. It's both sides have the work. And that's what my wife and I both realized is like, she literally looked at me after doing a lot of this work. She literally said, all the things I thought were wrong with you were actually the things that were wrong with me.
Mm.
Right. And so I'm her mirror and she's my mirror. Same thing. All the
Oh,
things I'm thinking are her issues. They're usually your own. And
yeah.
so that's what we have to look at. So yeah, be very careful what you're pointing out in your partner because it's
No
probably a lot
kidding.
to do with you. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
true. I don't know if you've heard of the author Terry Real or Terry Real. I don't know how you say his last name, but
Yeah.
he wrote a book called Us, and he says we marry our unfinished business. And I love that because
Yeah.
it's so true. I don't do a ton of couples work, but when I do, I usually try to incorporate that because it's this idea of like, yeah, you're going to mirror things to me that show areas where I need growth. And that's not
Yeah.
comfortable, but
And
it's
it's
important.
and it's an awesome thing though. It's a great thing. I always talk about now people get triggered and they're like, "Oh, I don't want to get triggered." I'm like, "No, it's okay to get triggered. Let's talk
Yeah.
about why you're triggered. Why are we triggered though? Let's figure it out." So sometimes having somebody in your life that triggers you, it's like it's okay. Let's not leave that per se right away. As long as we're not
Yeah.
in any physical harm type of thing. But if it's just an emotional kind of thing charging us, let's
Sure.
use this situation to kind of figure out what's going on because we can really learn. The more emotionally triggered we're getting, that's the best time to really learn from this because now it's really bringing it out. And that's really why I call my website, and everything is My Relationship Fail. Because when we finally hit that failure point and things are really
Hmm.
hypercritical, that's the best time to learn and look at it and go, oh my God, look at all this stuff that I couldn't see in the mess, right? When we take a step back.
Yes.
Now, unfortunately, and sometimes it's unfortunate that it has to get to that point. We don't want it to get there. That's the goal is
Right.
not to get there. But unfortunately, a lot of times it does have to hit that critical stage before we wake up and go, oh, wow, wait a second. This is
Hmm.
a problem.
Hmm.
Houston, we
Yeah.
got a problem,
We
right?
have
And
a
so
problem.
yeah, now I can look at it though, and now that pain and that hurt, and sometimes the way we've been doing things comes out, and now we're able to look at ourselves and say, okay, wait a second, I'm willing to change, because when the pain is great enough, that's when we're ready to really do the work. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
so many of us will push it away, we'll poo-poo it, and oh no, I'm fine, oh yeah, all this other stuff, until it's really out of control, bad, and that's when
Yeah.
some of us will wake up and go, okay, wait a second, yeah, this has gotten too far out of hand, and now we're headed towards divorce. I'm losing the person I love, whatever it might be,
Hmm.
and it's
Hmm.
an awful, awful place to be in. And sometimes you can save the situation, and sometimes you can't. So
Yes.
that's why I try to say let's not let it get to the critical point. But if it does get there, there is always hope. Yes, we can still always turn things around, and things are always possible to save the relationship and work things through. But it's not really great to get there. We want to get a hold of this before we get to that critical stage.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So for listeners who are hearing all of this and thinking, okay, like now what? Like, where does someone begin when they want to understand and improve their attachment style?
Yeah, I mean, I always challenge everybody. Go watch that video that I watched first for Thais Gibson. Go to YouTube. You can do it right now. It's an hour and
Yes.
15 minutes. It's
Yes.
Thais Gibson, Thais Gibson,
Okay.
Gibson, on the Mel Robbins podcast about attachment theory. Okay,
Okay.
watch that. Now, after that, if you still want to learn more, go to my website, myrelationshipfail.com. You can read about me. You can read about some of the attachment styles and stuff like that. And you can take the attachment style quiz for free. So you can learn
Awesome.
what your attachment style is real quick and easy. And then if you really want to delve into it, go join the personal development school also on my website. That is Thais Gibson School, the one that I went through.
Okay.
And that's where you can really begin to work. There is a treasure trove of videos and workbooks, and they have daily webinars that you can jump on, and a really great group of people that you can share your experience with and grow together. It's amazing. It's amazing community of people. And if you decide, when you do that, I'm going to give you a free session as well. I want to talk to you. All right. Set up an
Yeah.
appointment with me. I want to hear your story. I want to hear what's going on. I want to see if I can help you out a little bit, point you in the right direction. And then if you decide you want to continue to work with me, great. I'll be happy to kind of coach you through the program, see if we can move the needle a little bit faster for you. Or if you just want to go at your own pace through the personal development school, that's fine too. You can do that as well. But that's the best way to get started, in my opinion. And then ultimately, though, you do have to find what works for you. So if for some
Yes.
reason this is a program that isn't working for you, then you may need some additional therapy. You may need to find a trauma specialist,
Hmm.
somebody else who can really move the needle. And I think it's a great 1-2 punch. I think that learning the attachment style program and this online stuff is great, but also having a good therapist that you can work with hand in hand is
Yeah.
also a great thing to have as well. If you're able to do all that, if you're able to kind of really go there, I think it's
Yes.
a great, combination to really work together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So it's more comprehensive and like, yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. And I will absolutely link all of that information in the show notes so that our listeners can find you and find the resources that you are sharing. And I wonder, as we're kind of winding down, when you think about your own experience and your own healing, what does realistic relationship healing look like? Not perfection, but
Yeah.
meaningful progress. So in your situation, how did you start to feel like, okay, I think we're okay. Like, I think we're healing. I think we're making progress here.
Yeah, that's a great question. And, and it's just a little at a time. It's on a daily basis where, I just, for us, when the restraining order came off and we were able to start spending time together,
Yeah.
it was pretty obvious that we were doing things differently. I could sense the connection between us was stronger, different, better.
Hmm.
She does things for me that she knows, makes me feel better and that, kind of allows me to feel confident and comfortable in the relationship. Spending a little bit more time. I like connection. I love to, one of the things she'll do for me, like before we even get out of bed in the morning, is we'll just spend 20 minutes cuddling and hugging, just
Yeah.
cuddling. And that 20 minutes of cuddling to me just sets my day off right. It just makes me feel good for the day, right? That's just, now she doesn't
Yeah.
need that as much as I do. I actually appreciate that more than her, but she does it for me knowing that that's really important to me. And so,
Yes.
and just giving each other the space. My wife likes, she's very independent. She does not like to ask for help. Now she appreciates my help. I help in a lot of ways, but I also have to learn my boundaries and kind of know where that boundary is to, not overtake too much. Right. And kind of just
Yeah.
make sure that I'm respecting her independence and her ability to kind of do things on her own and not try to be Mr. Savior and do all the things and stuff like that. So little of those things, all these little things that we work together when we communicate about important things and we're doing it in a way that actually we can look each other in the eye, and
Hmm.
I let her speak for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, completely uninterrupted. And I'm listening to understand her now. And then she gives me the
Yeah.
same opportunity. So now we come out of that conversation feeling like we have some new ideas, perspectives, and respect for each other, and we understand each other more. We hear each other more. All of a
Yeah.
sudden, like these little things, all these little things, little thing here, little thing there, little thing here, little thing there. All of a sudden, you wake up and go, "Wow, you know what? This is pretty cool the way we're doing this. We're not arguing. We're not having these emotionally charged negative experiences. We're much more of a team now.
Yeah.
We're just so much more together than we ever were in the past, and it's just
Hmm.
beautiful, amazing. Like I never realized how good this can work. I never
Yeah.
had the tools to do it, and
Yes.
neither did she. And so now that we have these tools and we're actually applying them more and more on a regular basis, I always say it's like going to the gym. Like we're building these muscles, and building that muscle takes some time, and getting in shape takes a little bit of time. But the more we do it, the easier it gets, the more fit we are, and all of a sudden we wake up one day and go, "Oh my God, look at me, I'm in pretty good shape now. Look at us, we've got a pretty good relationship. We're in pretty good shape now. This relationship is pretty awesome, right?" And so that's how it works, just a little at a time. But you appreciate every little moment as you go, and I think every little step that you take in that regard is just like a blessing. And you're like, "Wow, this is pretty cool. It's just pretty cool."
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So rewarding. And I appreciate you sharing that just personal, reflection, because
yeah,
I think so often when we come into therapy spaces, it can look like, okay, how do you fix my partner? Or
yeah,
how like tell him or tell her
yeah,
what's wrong, right?
yeah.
And it's one of those things where just because I know my attachment style and just because I've owned my stuff doesn't mean that that fixes it right away. Like, and it's not so much about fixing as it is like maintaining, right? Like, because
Well,
these are old patterns that probably creep up if we're not,
yeah.
vigilant about
And the
it.
one thing I learned is we can't fix the other person, right? So we
That's
can't
right.
fix them. We can only fix ourselves, and
Hmm.
that's a hard enough task to do.
Hmm.
So we can't try to fix other people. All we do is work on fixing ourselves and then hope that our partner comes with us and hope that they grow with us and that we're growing together and we kind of learn this. And that's amazing when it does. But at the end of
Yeah.
the day, we can't force our partners to go along with us. And so I
Mm.
did all this work not to bring my partner back into my life. I actually did this work to let her go. I actually did this work to
Mm.
set it free. Okay.
Yeah.
And when I finally set it free is truly when it started to come back it started to come back around because I
Hmm.
no longer try to control it. I no longer try to keep it. I didn't no longer forced it to be a thing. And now my wife and I choose each other on a daily basis. My wife chooses to be with me. She chooses
Yeah.
to do the things that are important to me. She chooses to want to share life with me and have fun and do those things that like we both choose each other. We choose this in a way that's healthier and so much better than feeling like we have to or we're trapped or we're now and then it just gets frustrating and
Hmm.
everybody's building resentment and there's underlying tension.
Yes.
So when you do it in a healthy way, there isn't this negative underlying tone. There's just peace and joy and 99%. I'm not saying it's perfect, right? It's never perfect.
Sure.
But you will see on a regular basis that it is pretty amazing, and the downtimes are farther and fewer between.
Yeah.
the triggered moments, the emotional stuff is way farther and fewer between, and less stressful, and all of it just gets reduced more and more, and it becomes less and less. And now you're enjoying 99% of your days and time together in a way that is just fantastic. And it's the one that I want everybody to experience, right? I want
Yeah.
everybody to experience a relationship that works well, that you communicate well, that you have your needs met, you're feeling the
Hmm.
joy, you're feeling such joy and peace and all this stuff together. And having a partner in life like that is pretty amazing experience. But it does take some knowledge. It does take a little bit of navigation, if you will. It does take some
Yeah.
ability to kind of do that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
As we wrap up, I have
Yeah.
one, I guess,
I
final
don't want to wrap
question.
up. I just want to talk to you
I
forever.
know, my gosh, we could keep this conversation going. And also, too, if there's anything else that I haven't asked or that you feel like is really important for our listeners, or just anything, please, like this is such helpful work to our CPTSD community. So
Yeah.
I wonder, what's one thing that you wish that every person struggling with like an insecure attachment style knew about themselves?
Yeah, I want you to know that it's normal. That
Yeah.
you're perfectly normal. And this is all learned behavior that we learn as predominantly in our childhood, but we learn it somewhere in our lives really to protect ourselves.
Hmm.
And we've developed a pattern that really just served us at one time, and it did its job to protect us. It did do its job to keep us safe at the time.
Yeah.
But at this point, it may no longer be serving you. And until you kind of learn that and fix that a little bit, you may continue to struggle and have these unhealthy patterns. And a lot of times we get our needs met in an unhealthy way because we haven't done the work. And so the brain is a needs meeting machine, and it will
Hmm.
always work to get its needs met in the most quickest, easiest way possible, even if the long term repercussions are negative. So it
Hmm.
will try to get its needs met immediately, even if it knows it's not necessarily a good thing to do. And we can really just hurt ourselves, really destroy our own lives and hurt other people. They always say hurt people, right?
Hmm.
It's so true. Well, healthy people help other people get healthy too. So the healthier we can
Yeah.
get, the healthier we can kind of help others get a little bit. And sometimes, that kind of works in conjunction. So,
Yeah.
but there's always hope too. I always like to end people. If this is all I can say, I like to give you some hope. I want you to know that I don't care how bad it looks right now. I don't care
Yeah.
if your spouse told you they hate you,
Hmm.
get out of my life. Because I heard all this. I heard, I'll never be happy so long as you're around me. Like what? I've heard
Yeah.
all that stuff. I want you to know that that's not necessarily true. That anything can turn around. That everything is possible. But you do
Yeah.
have to take the time away to do the work, to look at yourself, work on yourself, and let things go, because we don't always know the outcome. We can't control the other person. And so if that other person decides to continue to walk out of our lives, we have to accept that. We have to learn to be okay with that, even if we don't like it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, if we do let that go and we do the work, if there is love and there is real connection still, sometimes that person will come back around and go, "Wow, wait a second. Why would I walk away? You're becoming the person I've always dreamed you would be." And now they
Yes.
come right back running and saying, "Oh, I don't want to lose this. Like, no way. You are what
Yeah.
I want." And so sometimes one person has to take the reins, though. Somebody has to take the lead.
Yes.
So don't wait for the other person. Somebody put it to me this way. They say two is better than one, but one is better than none. And I love that, right? So yes, it's always great if your partner's working with you, but even if your partner decides they don't want to, you can still do the work. You can still learn this. And I promise you, you will have a better relationship with someone. It's possible that it will be your spouse that you're with
Hmm.
now, or your current breakup, whatever you're going through. It is
Hmm.
possible that that comes back around. But even if that one doesn't, somebody else will ultimately come back into your life. And when that new person comes in, you'll be more ready and prepared to have a really great relationship with that person. And now so you can only benefit when you do the work. That's the thing I love about it. You can't
Yeah.
lose. It's a win-win. You can only
Yeah.
win when you do the work. you know?
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. No, I think that's such a positive, wonderful way to end that and to think about that, because I think for some people, and we see this a lot with the divorce rate, and the divorce rate for second marriages is even higher than the first one, right? So and that's just I think that what that shows is that if I don't heal the stuff that got me in that situation the first time, I'm just going to go and I'm going to repeat that in a different relationship. Right. And so I just, that's really powerful. And I appreciate you sharing that. That's a really cool quote. I hadn't heard that before. The two is
Yeah.
better than one, but one is better than none. Oh, I
Yeah.
like
I
that.
also I also like this one. I always say they call it a breakup, not a breakdown. Okay, so even if
Mm,
you are broken up currently, I want you to take this time to level up. It's called a break up. We're going to level up through this breakup experience. Okay, so wherever
mm,
you are in that
yeah,
breakup spot, it's okay. Catch your breath. I used to think I was being punished. I used to think these things were punishing me. All right. And what I
yeah,
realize is I'm being given a chance. It's a blessing. I'm being given a chance to fix it, to learn from it, to grow from it, and to actually get better from it. Okay. So
yes.
that I'm not stuck in a loveless relationship. I'm not stuck in an unhealthy relationship for the next 20, 30 years.
Hmm.
Right. Or whatever time it is, whatever time I've left on this earth, I want it to be the best, healthiest I can be. And so a breakup is just a time to reflect, learn, grow, catch your breath, and let things go. And let's see what can happen in life. Let's see where that love comes back around or doesn't. And if that person is meant for you to be in your life, they will come back around. It's a guarantee. And if it's
Yeah,
meant to move on, and that person was just for that time, and that time is now over, then sometimes the best thing is to let it be over and now embrace the new experience, embrace what's next. My wife and I we're not fixing the old relationship. My wife and I have a brand new relationship. It's like a new
yeah,
woman to me. She's a new
yeah,
person, right? We have a
yeah.
new creation. And so we're totally new here. So, but yeah, just do the work and honestly, let things happen and just have some peace and trust and have faith that it's going to work out the way it's supposed to. It'll be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Bryan,
Yeah.
thank you so much for sharing your story and your expertise and really your heart today. I think this conversation is to me such a powerful reminder that our patterns are not failures, they're adaptations and they make sense. And for listeners, if you want to learn more about Bryan, you can visit myrelationshipfail.com or follow the links in the show notes. And as always, thank you for tuning in to Reclaiming Me. And Bryan, thank you so much for being here today. And if this episode resonated, follow and share this conversation with somebody who might need it. So thank you for being here.
Thanks, Cindy. Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care, everybody. Let's quickly revisit the 3 key takeaways from today's episode. Number 1, understanding your attachment style can shine a light on why your relationship patterns repeat. Number 2, we briefly visited the 6 pillars of integrated attachment theory, from core wounds to healthy behaviors, and how they offer a roadmap to secure attachment. And number 3, practicing boundaries, communication, and self-regulation helps you break old cycles and create relationships that feel safe, nurturing, and connected. I hope you leave feeling a little lighter, a little more grounded, and a little closer to trusting yourself and relationships. If this episode supported your journey with trauma, attachment wounds, anxiety, or people pleasing, share it with a friend or follow the show so you don't miss future episodes. For free resources, tools to work with me directly, visit cindypayne.com or connect with me on Instagram at cindypaynerooted. I'll be back next Monday with another full-length episode where we are going to go deeper with the attachment styles. And this Wednesday, a short midweek reframe to give you a practical skill, insight, or nervous system tool. And next week, I hope you'll tune in because not only are we going to go deeper with attachment styles, but we are going to keep exploring practical ways to recognize your style, manage your triggers, and create healthier connections in all areas of your life. You won't want to miss it. Remember, every small step towards healing, boundaries, self-trust, and presence matters. You are worthy of this journey. Until next time, take care.